What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. You might hear a new noise in the background. It's one of the side effects of living in the South. It's the air conditioning. My game room has a separate air conditioning unit, and it tends to make a lot of noise. So I apologize for that, but it's keeping the games cool when it would otherwise be quite warm. Today I thought I would just give a brief primer on what to look for when you're buying your first bingo. So I've talked briefly about what to look for in an EM, and most of the same tenets hold forth with a bingo. You want to take a look at the pictures on Phil's site, bingo.cdyn.com, and compare against what you're looking at in real life. Making sure that the back glass hasn't been altered, as I mentioned in my Bingos in the Law episode. Inspect the condition of the cabinet. If woodworking's not your thing, you want to make sure that it's solid. Same with the head. The foot rails are not reproduced anywhere, so you want to make sure that those are not completely worn into dust. The buttons are also not reproduced, and hard to come by these days for the control rail, the foot rail. So make sure that it's got a reasonable set. Now, you're never going to find, or I should say, rarely going to find perfect buttons. Most of the bingos were played for years and years and years and well maintained in order to continue to earn money. So there's going to be hundreds and thousands of button presses for each button, which will have gradually worn them down. But these things can be restored somewhat. So just make sure the buttons are there. That's the main thing. And if they're reasonable looking, then all the better. If they're not, that's not a deal breaker for me, but for some people, they appreciate nicer cosmetics to start with. So the next thing that you want to do is open up the head. If the person selling it doesn't have keys, which is an important question to ask, make sure that you have your drill with you. And even if they say they do have keys, you should probably bring a drill with you anyway. And you don't want to drill the side locks that hold the back glass in. Instead, you want to drill the back locks, which open the back door. Once you get into the back box, you need to verify the following stuff. You need to make sure that all the motors work, at least as far as you can reasonably tell. If you can't plug the machine in, spin the fan blades and make sure that the shaft turns appropriately. If it doesn't, then you may have a motor that needs to be rebuilt, or a dead motor, and that should adjust your price accordingly, up to a couple $100. Beyond that, look at the condition of the wiring. Do you see any obvious mouse nests? Torn paper is one telltale sign. Another is a bunch of mouse poop in the cabinet. If you see a lot of that, that's something to consider. You can get very sick from handling or dealing with mouse poop. Another thing to look for are bug nests. So, if mud daubers have made nests on the side of the game, or inside the game, which would be more problematic, then you'll see the typical cone-shaped homes that they've made. You just want to verify that there's none in there if you can. Next thing is, how much rust do you see? Do steppers move at all? Do steppers move but are gummy, which is completely 100% normal, or do they move completely freely, which means that there's slightly less work for you to do. These are the basic things that you need to think about when you're looking at a bingo. Now let's talk a minute about cosmetics. As I mentioned, the cabinet cosmetics I'm less concerned with, but some folks are very concerned with that. So you want to check for flaking paint or missing paint or gouges in the cabinet. All those kind of things, which are going to be really obvious when you're looking at it. The playfield condition, I have, myself brought back many playfields that look like they were completely beyond the pale just as far as the amount of dirt on them. So, dirt shouldn't scare you away. What should scare you away is if there's a bunch of missing paint. So, if the playfield is down to the wood, bare wood, in areas, that's unusual. Most of the bingo playfields held up very, very well. I'm not sure if they put an extra thick coat of polyurethane on these or what exactly they did, but they've really, really held up very, very nicely. The next thing is the back glass. So the back glass in a bingo gives you most of the information that you need in order to play the game. Flaking in some areas that don't contain odds or feature names is fine. That's not crucial to the gameplay. And even some flaking in the odds where the features is not going to hurt you, as long as you can tell what's going on. Now, if all the odds are flaked away, then you got trouble. That said, I've never seen one that bad. Again, the back glass is... it's going to vary based on how old it is, but a lot of the back glasses for the bingos held up pretty well. I've seen flaking in non-critical areas frequently, especially on the older bingos, the wood rails, but not much terribly wrong with newer metal rail bingos, at least that I've seen. So, of course, your mileage may vary there because it's going to depend on how the machines were kept up until the moment that you're looking at it. So, as Steve Smith mentioned in a previous podcast, climate control is pretty essential. So, if you are planning to put the bingo in a non-climate controlled space and use it, then you're going to lose artwork. And eventually it's going to get so ugly it'll bother you. So for Tech Today, I thought I'd take a step back and talk about something which pinball collectors have most likely had to do at least once in their adventures collecting. And that's to drill a lock. So what you need to do is carry a bit index with you, and the stronger the bit, the better, and ideally a cordless drill. However, I've never run into a situation where I couldn't plug the drill in when I needed to. So I usually bring a corded drill, and that's because it gives me more power. So if you're bringing a cordless drill, make sure that your batteries are good and that they can withstand quite a bit of abuse, because it takes a little bit of time to drill through a lock. So the idea is you take the largest bit that will fit into the area where the key goes and push it in and start drilling. And you just want to go straight through the middle. And then you move up to your next largest bit and so on. And eventually what will happen is that the screw in the back that holds the lock tab in place will fall away, and then you'll have access to whatever the lock was holding. Now again, in the back box, if you have to drill those, there are two different locks, one at the top and one near the bottom, that would need to be drilled. So that's all for today. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online at foramusementonly.libsyn.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, RSS, and on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.